Ladies and gentlemen, my proud pleasure to introduce Todd Dalotto.
All right, Todd.
Welcome to your introduction. And he's coming out with it before we hear about what he has to say about hemp food. Thank you for coming.
Well, it's really happy to be here, and I'm really happy to be talking about hemp because the last decade and a half or so, it's been all about marijuana. And I've been in the cannabis industries for about 21 years now. And back then we could only dream of the industry being this far and having the ability to grow hemp here in Oregon. And 21 years ago, I founded the U.S.'s first hemp food business called Hemp Foods down in Eugene, Oregon. And a few years after that, I wrote the world's first hemp cookbook called The Hemp Cookbook From Seed to Shining Seed. And pretty much since then, I've been pretty occupied with the Hemp and Medical Marijuana Act. It got passed right around the time that I published my book. And so this presentation is about more about cannabis hemp seed and its benefits for both our health and the planet's health. So we're going to start out talking more about farming and a little botany lesson for you. So we all know that cannabis is part of the Cannabaceae family. It's a very tight little family with lots of tropical plants, and you're probably familiar with its closest relative, hops. And there's a lot of disagreement as to, its actual taxonomic nomenclature, but we can safely say that there are three either species or subspecies, and they all produce good hemp seed. Sativa is more commonly used in the production of hemp seed as it is with hemp fiber. And so indica is obviously came from the Central Asian region. It's a lot shorter and bushier, and so it doesn't really make that great of fiber. Sativa, the taller, lankier variety, is definitely used much more commonly with both hemp seed as well as hemp fiber. So hemp farming for seed isn't terribly different from growing hemp fiber. The plants you see in this picture, this actually comes from Canada's first crop in 1998, and it was grown for both seed and fiber. The cultivar, the hemp seed varieties that are available right now are either strictly for fiber production or strictly for seed production, but this is a variety that is for both. And basically what happens when you harvest it for both seed and fiber, you do things like this. You come across the crop, one tractor leaves with a thresher up above, cuts off all those seed heads, threshes it and separates the chaff from the seed, and then a tractor comes right behind it and it swaths it down and harvests the hemp fiber. So this portion here will be great for hemp fiber. This portion is for the hemp seed. But often when you're growing it for both purposes, you sacrifice a little bit of quality of both products. This farm in particular was in Delta, BC, which is just a few miles over the U.S. border. So it was really interesting to be able to look at the U.S. border from a hemp field. These farmers weren't prepared for their harvest. They had a stationary thresher in their barn, and they made the mistake of swathing it all down. That means laying the whole plant down, and then they were like, hey, how are we going to harvest the seed? It's all lying on the ground. So they hired massive crews of East Indian migrant farm workers with little fiskers and cut all the seed heads by hand. And then they took them to the barn and put them in their thresher. So it wasn't a very profitable move. The only way they were able to make money was by selling it by the pounds, which if you're a farmer growing many, many acres of hemp, you know how profitable selling things by the pounds can be. Anyway, we had a little fun that day, and we harvested a little seed, and of course the seed was too wet to actually process properly, but we had a little fun with a winnow, and we separated the seeds, and we just had a little bit of fun. But really this is the way it's done today, is instead of a winnow, we have large seed cleaning machinery, a lot more efficient than using fiskers and a couple sieves and a little wind. So that's where we're at right now. Hemp food basically hemp comes, you can get it by the whole seed, which those of us who were in the hemp movement 20-something years ago, we crunched a lot of hemp seed. We got a lot of hemp seed stuck in our mouth, stuck in our teeth, but we loved it. We were just happy to be eating hemp. And but eventually, some engineers found the ability to hull it, to take that shell off and get down to its meat, and that's what we see at the bottom there is the whole hemp seed. Of course, we were able to press it for oil as well. Things were interesting. Back 20 years ago, we were getting pretty much all of our hemp seed from China off the bird seed market, and so we had to clean our seed, and it was sterilized, and the nutritional value was compromised, and the flavor was compromised. But then we were happy to be eating cannabis sativa. We sure were, and we had to do that in order to, just in order to start getting people to use hemp, starting to put it in their bodies. And so we were, it only took a year or so before we started getting really, really tired of this sterilized bird seed. So some colleagues of mine arranged this scheme where we took container loads of live seed, shipped them down to Santiago, Chile, where they don't have that silly rule that you have to kill your seeds. And because the U.S. law only says it must be incapable of germination, so we figured, hey, instead of sterilizing our seeds with steam, we're going to sterilize it by pressing it for oil. And then we ship the oil and the seed cake up to the U.S. separately in order to get the first non-sterilized hemp seed oil available in the U.S. legally. So that's what we had to go through back then. We still have to go through a lot of crazy things in order to get our cannabis, but at least it's getting better. And of course, these raw materials eventually make their way into products. We see a lot of the old products from 20 years ago up here, but there's still some innovation. You can get hemp hearts, hulled hemp seed and pressed oil just about in any natural food store these days, so it's pretty widely available, fortunately, and we don't have the DEA interrupting our shipments so frequently anymore. So you probably want to know why we're eating hemp seed, besides it just being cannabis or want more cannabis in our body. It's one of the most nutritious foods on the planet, in fact. It's 30% fat, but it's the best kind of fat. I heard of omega-3s and omega-6 fatty acids. Well, this has got tons of it. It's one of the most abundant seeds for this type of nutrition. And not only does it have good fat, it has some damn good protein as well. And it's biologically active, it's easy to digest, and it's quite abundant. It has some appreciable amounts of fiber, especially if you leave the hull on it. It's certainly low in carbohydrates, so it's really an awesome food. And it's got some of the macronutrients, meaning the nutrients we need a lot of, fats and protein, which makes it a really good complement for foods that are high in micronutrients. Micronutrients are all the minerals and vitamins and all. So it's a really good complement for green veggies and kale and broccoli and spirulina and all these wonderful foods. I've never, a lot of people from my day may be really enthusiastic and say, hemp's the only food we need, hemp is the only fiber we need. But really, it's just a wonderful complement in a lot of areas. And you can also rub it on your body. And it's just as good for your skin from the outside in as it is from taking it from the inside out. And it makes wonderful soaps and balms and lotions and salves, which also makes it a wonderful ingredient to include in your medicinal cannabis topicals. Might as well nourish that skin while you're, treating that melanoma. Why not? And more on the industrial side, it isn't entirely to put on your body and inside your body. It also makes some wonderful industrial oil products. So the food, the hemp oil that we'd be ingesting, we want to take a lot of good loving care to press that oil low heat so it doesn't go bad, so it doesn't oxidize and cause free radical oxidation in the blood. But you can get every last drop of that oil out of the seed by doing a second pressing with some more stronger solvents that you wouldn't want to eat. And that's how we get every last drop of that oil out to make industrial oil. Biodiesel, it makes wonderful biodiesel. I wouldn't say we will challenge the petrochemical industry by making biodiesel from hemp, because canola yields, almost twice as much per acre. So on a per acre basis, it's not the best for biodiesel. But as you probably heard from Dave Siebert earlier, it makes a wonderful deck sealant. And it's got unique chemical properties that will make it just a wonderful thing for engineers to fiddle with and come up with a lot of highly specialized products. And so we just need to start growing it here so our engineers can fiddle with it and make some high quality specialized products. Which comes around to the legal issues we're dealing with. Obviously, the federal government makes no distinction between hemp and marijuana. They're beginning to show signs of making a distinction, but they still have a long way to go, and that's still our biggest hurdle for for a hemp industry here in Oregon, here in the U.S., all over the world. We need import-export permits. We need to import our seed. That's, as soon as we get that hurdle over with, then we can fly. But we need to lower those borders. We need to get the federal government out of the way so that we can import seed and products and more importantly, export and get this economy going. The Federal Controlled Substances Act. So really the only parts of the cannabis plant that the federal government allows us are the stalks and sterilized seed, as I mentioned. And of course, Oregon's Industrial Hemp Act, we're all excited about because we could finally utilize this law that was passed 6 years ago. The licensing is currently underway. We know we've got a few licenses out there. We can expect some legislative amendments because the act wasn't perfect. One of the big fixes is allowing the production of hemp seed. For some reason, the 2009 Act only allowed hemp fiber. And so, Dave Seaver, as much as he's done over the decades to take us where we are now, if the legislature doesn't do their job, Dave Seaver will still have to import his darn seeds, and that's just a crime. So that's one fix we will hope to see in the legislature is allowing these farmers to grow for seed. They can grow for seed only for planting next year, but they can't make seed for food. Another issue is pollen control areas. I haven't been here all weekend, so I'm not sure how much discussion.
You did a little. Do it.
Yeah, I'm sure there is a great interest and a lot of passion about the pollen issue. And let me tell you, there is a very legitimate concern on both sides. We've got an amazing cash crop in the state of medical and adult use marijuana. We have some of the world's top cannabis breeders here in this state, some of the world's top cannabis producers in one of the top climates in the world for marijuana. But we're going to have some hemp pollen being produced somewhere in Oregon this year if we can get seed to plant. But as legitimate of a concern as there is for marijuana growers, there's also a legitimate concern for hemp growers because, marijuana growers are a lot more careful with their pollen. But even if a little bit of pollen gets into a hemp field, it can pollinate hemp plants, and if that hemp field is used for planting seed production, it's a very small chance. But if that plant that happened to receive the marijuana pollen produces seeds that happen to get planted next year, and those seeds that are planted next year happen to produce plants that the THC inspector happens to randomly sample, and it tests higher than 0.3% THC, then that farmer is in trouble. That cultivar may be in trouble, but regardless, it causes a lot of problems. So there are legitimate concerns on both sides. I will tell you that I've studied horticulture at Oregon State University, which is one of the botany and horticulture and agriculture programs that study wind-pollinated plants the most. We study hazelnuts, filberts, all kinds of trees and grass seed crops. You know, OSC was really one of the premier institutes for studying wind pollination. So they would also be perfectly poised to study cannabis wind pollination and to come up with some, you know, really solid scientifically backed recommendations for control areas. But in general, the research around wind-pollinated crops goes something like this. If you're right next to a large hemp farm, you're likely to get coated with pollen, and you're likely to have plants that are just full of seeds. Okay? If you're within a mile of a large hemp field, you're likely to get a significant amount of seeds, okay? Enough to ruin your crop. Between 1 mile and 3 miles, you're likely to get some seeds, maybe enough to ruin your marijuana crop, maybe not. We need to do a little research on this. But if you're beyond 3 miles away,
then you're just being hysterical.
Then, you know, pollen does travel many miles, but clouds of pollen don't travel many miles. You may have some pollen that happens to fall on your sticky plant, but if you're more than 3 or 5 miles away, you're not going to get your whole plant full of seeds. You're not going to probably get enough to ruin your crop. The way they do it in most other wind-pollinated breeding is the control areas set up these radiuses, radii, and there's 2 types of seed. There's, you know, foundation seed and there's breeder seed, and these are different levels of protection. And they generally end, you know, no more than 5 miles away from the farm in question. So, anyway, it would be great if OSU did this research, but they're, of course, tied to the federal government with a lot of other things that public institutions do. So we're probably not going to see that anytime soon, but we do need some really valid scientific basis to base our paranoia upon. And of course, if you didn't want to get a hemp permit from the federal government or from the Oregon Department of Agriculture, you could still grow 6 mature hemp seed plants under the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act, and you could possess an unlimited amount of non-sterilized hemp seed. So that's the only way you can possess that non-sterilized hemp seed if you're a COVID patient. Unlimited quantities, we're talking train loads. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
However it works.
Yeah, but if you're really that committed, go get a permit, okay? And grow it in the Snake River Valley where nobody's going to complain. All right. So anyway, I'm going to end it up here, and I'm going to invite Donnie Wirtshafter up to give you a talk, and then I'm going to stick around, and then both me and Donnie are going to answer some questions from the audience. So, Donnie is really one of the, time hempsters. I can embarrass him, but he was there from the beginning. He stuck with it, and just done some amazing things. So, Donnie Wirtshafter.
Thank you, Todd. Hey, everybody. I got a whole lot of slides I'm trying to show in a few short minutes. So, this is a slide about our roots. This is us 20-some years ago trying to sell hemp to the Ohio Farm Bureau's annual picnic. We're at the corner of Chemical and whatever. This is what we did 20 years ago, trying to get the idea of industrial hemp back into farmers' consciousness. This is some of the clothing we had when we did the Ohio Hemp catalog in 1991 through 1998. 1-800 buy hemp. Yeah. So I'm going to go through it. But I'm going to put down here. I think I can do this easier, okay? I'm going to go through about 20 slides. This is the museum we're putting together, trying to show the history of cannabis as a medicine, and the history of that parallels the history of glass making, and the history of how we took drugs to mean dried herbs, and turned drugs into chemicals, and then, the marijuana became a drug. It's all confusing. We're trying to explain the history of cannabis use through the incredible apothecaries and pharmaceutical bottles that we've collected for this museum project. And so we're going back in and researching each one of these bottles and the marks on the bottom of them and proving the date. One of the things I want to talk about is how they have cannabis sativa and cannabis indica jars 100 years ago. And it's my theory, doing this study of these jars already, that our physicians 100 years ago knew more about this medicine than we do today. And one of the things they understood was the difference between CBD and THC. They didn't know the names for these things. They didn't understand the receptors and the agonists and the antagonists and all these things we understand today. But they knew their indica from sativa. And that's not the same thing we think about today when we talk indica and sativa. That's a modern construct. This thing's coming out. Construct. 100 years ago, they had 150 years ago, the common medicine was cannabis sativa. And that was pretty much European hemp. It was a CBD medicine, and they used it for arthritis. They had all their uses for it. About the 1860s, Asian varieties of the drug started to come in as cannabis indica. Okay, this was THC medicine, and they understood that difference well. Then they started to make hybrids of the two. They called it cannabis americana. They had different uses for the three of them. Cannabis americana is kind of like the sativa. It's a bit of half CBD and half THC blend that actually is very effective, and is effective more as a medicine sometimes because it doesn't have the ability to have psychoactive effects on naive users. So, if we go through history, we're seeing how they developed these into extracts, and how they understood the indications. Now that they have labels, and after 1906 with the Harrison Act, they had to see what it was for and all. So we have the indications that they understood these different things for, and they understood, and this matches what we're understanding the difference between CBD and THC are today. They also understood the difference between the acidic form of THC and the decarboxylated form of THC. And that they make pictures, but they also make syrups. They cook the pictures. That was a separate medicine. So you had the inactive picture that you could give, say, if we had children or whatever, that didn't have so much ability to get you high. And they had the cooked medicine that you could really get the dose from. And for pain and other things that you need a strong dose from. Like some of these things, like this little bottle here, Houston, Texas. I've got 5 jars now for Texas. I'm going to give to the Texas activists. I don't think I have much more of them. But as we go through, they start to add cannabis to other things. It's still into the 1920s. Here's your formulas. So you were getting almost LSD and cannabis at the same time. We have jars here that have cannabis, opium, and capsicum. The capsicum, red pepper oil, is the strongest agonist of the vanilla oil receptor in the brain. And these days, the three receptors that are being used to treat pain are the opioid receptor, the cannabinoid receptor, and the vanilla oil receptor. And these physicians 100 years ago, without any understanding of the receptors, dialed in the right three herbs to directly affect those three things and put it together and across the industry. They were doing these three together. So, I mean, they had it. They understood a lot. Court cures. The killer application for cannabis 100 years ago were these court cures. People must have had a lot of foot problems and bunions and warts and things. And I've done 54 of these corn plasters that were cannabis, public cannabis fiber with the oil, a fixture on it. And this is what you would put on your wart, and 2 days later it would fall off. And so they understood how cannabis treated cancer 100 years ago. And so also, these next few are boxes that were on the pharmacy shelves in the 1930s. This cannabis leaf was an herb. And Sharp and some of the drug manufacturers made these boxes with Park Davis, the king of botanical medicines, putting out herbs in the 1930s. And this is the stuff, this is actually from stuff that was taken off the shelves in 1937 by a drug dealer and put in his closet for history's sake. He made his wife promise she wouldn't sell the stuff for 10 years after he died. And that's how this came into my possession. You know, it was evil. I remember putting out aphrodisiac pills, with cannabis and the hippie. Hippies are the basis for Viagra. So now, let's talk a minute about farming here. I'm going to go the other way for a minute, just because I have these slides. And, you know, I did this slideshow, and I encourage you, if you're interested in this stuff, to take this course that O.A.F.R has. Okay? I get to teach one segment in that course on the processing of industrial hemp. Okay?
$25.
And senior citizens can take it for $25 and contact the instructors. And so, these are photos from here. We're trying to get the people of Oregon a conceptualization that this isn't like people bending over, you know, with floss and trying to, break it, like we did 100 years ago. The modern farm machine can handle this stuff. And in Europe, they've easily adapted their techniques so that they can grow hemp and process it with the same equipment that they are growing hay and processing hay. And, you know, here, this is actually a pretty muddy crop. It's not a field a little too long. And they like to leave it out in the field to soften it up, to red it a little bit. Right? This is a little too far for them. But here they come, these machines, there's like 5 of them. They go through the fields and race each other and see how many bales they can race. And different equipment, and they were all harvesting this burning fiber and putting it out. This was a really cool loader that we loaded 4 big bales at a time. Go around the field and scoop these 4 bales up in no time and race back to the truck and put them down. They could load the truck up in a few minutes. And they're hauling it back to this factory. This is the Hemp factory in eastern Netherlands. This is almost a quarter-mile-long line that they inherited and adopted from flax processing. They were making flax paper here. Or hemp and flax. They were making hemp and flax paper for until World War II, and after World War II, it was only flat paper. So this was modified, brought this family, and developed into this incredible place. And so the hemp bales were put in on this end of the line, and this is several years ago. This is all been improved and modernized. And it goes down this long line of different stages. So it gets the wood off, and it gets this is the herb, which is the interior portion of the plant. And they sell this as animal bedding and as house construction material around the world. It's like, this is the stuff that the Queen of England beds her horses on. And they used the fiber originally for cigarette papers. They were selling it to companies in Turkey. They were buying it very inexpensively and turning it into cigarette papers. But they worked by making the fiber more of quality and consistency until they were able to make it into high-end auto parts. This is Ben Broncos. He's proprietor of the Hemp and Cannabis Museum. He's got the Sensi Resort in Thailand and a few other ventures. But this is his love, trying to make industrial hemp work right. And so here you see him by these big bales of good fiber, the wrong fiber. And this is what they're able to produce out of it by these mats of fiber, some of which are laid down through the layers of randomly with polypropylene fiber. And then these mats are put into a heat press. Just roll off the lines. These little panels, these become the interior door of Mercedes-Benz. They cover with vinyl. This is how Europe is doing their cars. There's a mandate in Europe that makes them clean up their car industry, like they clean up everything. They're trying to clean up the world where we seem to have no care about it. And in Europe, you can't produce anything without being responsible for it from cradle to grave. Meaning the car companies have to create recyclable cars and fiberglass. And all these plastics that we're using in our cars are not recyclable, they're not compostable, they're not vulnerable. So they had to go a different direction, and it proved the way. This is a blow-up of all of the panels made out of industrial hemp in this car. You know, this is an interior panel. In the 1940s, they knew how to take industrial hemp and make panels strong enough to make auto body parts. And they understood that they were stronger and they would get safer accidents and all this stuff. But here we're fighting the influence of the steel industry. We never went that direction. But it's really happening. You know, we're a car made out of hemp. There's one thing made in Canada. Somebody's talking about building airplanes out of hemp. House panels and cut floor tiles and roofing shingles and on and on and on. Actually, in the front row here, we got that. And his brother Carl, from Colorado. And I went to see their factory last week, and it was impressive. And they've been working 22 years on how to take industrial, just waste from first the straw of making wheat. So they have a whole lot of straw, and they wanted to make paper out of the straw. So they came up with a method of cooking the straw in an auger. And then they came up with all these inventions around that. So now they have a 2 augers going 2 different directions and all this stuff. And they got this technology that's really impressive to take wheat straw and turn it into paper pulp with sugar and lignins. And then they figured out how to do corn stoves. And now they're going to figure out how to do it with industrial hemp. It's technologies like this that are going to bring us into the future. We're not going to be doing it the old-fashioned way. I can give you a whole slideshow how we used to process hemp, just to show you that's not the way it's going to get done here. Nobody's going to be out in the small ponds putting bales of hemp in there, trying to fish it out in the spring so that we can put it through our factory. No, we can't do it that way anymore. These are industrial panels made out of the hemp fiber, the interior, and then the small fibers, which are resin for the exterior. We're coming up with all kinds of great innovations for hemp there and around the world. Everywhere but here, until now, we've never been able to do this here. All the hipsters had really foreign languages, had really foreign transactions, had to wait 6 months for the stuff to come on a ship. And all of a sudden here we have the opportunity to really do this in America and try to catch up with the rest of the world in this, farming industry. But it's not like there's a seed in America with all of our pants down. And so any of you who speak Czechoslovakian or speak Romanian or Polish or whatever, call your relatives in the old country and find us a seed for Oregon. Somehow we didn't get it in there. This is hemp building. This is going to be the real app. How we're going to use most hemp? Yeah, we're going to use the oil. We're not going to burn it up in automobiles. We're going to use it for high-end uses. Okay? But all that oil is going to produce 10 times that much fiber. And that fiber is going to be our building material for our next generation. We're going to have to cut down trees or dig up fossil fuel, all this stuff to make our building materials. Here we've got carbon neutral, carbon negative building materials that are, actually operate as a carbon sink. These are hemp buildings. They are conventional. They fit architectural models. You can get them past building commissions. This is becoming accepted technology. The industry can't get enough of industrial hemp. We just have to gear up to produce it for them. Here's hemp being used as a insulation in the floors of a building. And it's there for a long time. Rodents don't get to it. Bugs don't get to it. It gets harder over time, not softer. It breathes so that you're able to be comfortable in your house. You're not living in a plastic bag like they want to live in nowadays. 2 more things. This one's easy. What's going on right now? This thing the Justice Department got loose in December that said the native tribes have the right to make their own regulations, that they have the right to promise amongst themselves as long as there's no diversion, and they follow the 8 criteria in the Cole Memorandum. The native tribes have been let loose in this. In the last 3 months, they've woken up to this as being a challenge to their sovereignty. If we don't do this, the other tribe will. Whatever. They're all jealously pushing forward in this new industry with no holds barred. So I think it's going to be a game changer. I think this is the Justice Department administration saying, yeah, we're ready to do this. And the people that we can give this to without controversy are the native tribes. Let's see how they fly with it. And watch out, everybody, because you're going to see some amazing things quickly. And finally, this is from a study by my former colleague, Etienne Meyer. 1995 inheritance of chemotype in cannabis. And it's a really important lesson for everybody. I've been hearing a lot of discussion about pollination this, pollination that, pollination that. And I don't really hear anybody talk to me about pollination and all these issues that they don't understand this article, because it really is the basis by which we can talk to each other and understand CBD varieties and THC varieties and what it means that I've got a high CBD and low THC variety and all that. I hope we have some time. I'm going to try to take a minute here and explain this. But the stuff we're smoking nowadays, this is THC content, and this is CBD content. The stuff that we smoke in America, very few THC content. Okay? And then it has no CBD content at all. Because it's got two genes, everything's got two genes, right? One from your each parent, right? So you got two copies of the genetic code. And these plants have both genes set for THC production. Okay? Now, in our industrial hemp, they went through years of breeding and stuff in Europe and trying to get this stuff that wasn't sticky and they could make cloth out of it. You know, and hemp in Europe was not about getting high, it was about industrial production. Home industry at that time. It was more about what you could do in your backyard. But those plants are down here. They're low in CBD and low THC because they're not sticky. They were bred for tens of thousands of years by our ancestors to be these straight, tall, non-sticky plants. They have to be what we call homozygous, both genes being set for CBD production. Okay? Now, the problem is, all of a sudden we got all these people that produce CBD out of industrial hemp. The problem is, it's really low in CBD, it's low in THC. It's not a plant bred for production of resins. So, what have people done? This is what we did as Wirtshafter in the early 90s. And we bred these high CBD varieties. People do it this way. If you make crosses between your medical cannabis and industrial hemp, okay? And now what happens? In your first year, your F1 hybrids are what we call heterozygotes. Zygotes are different. So you got a THC one from one parent, you got a CBD one from the other parent every time, right? So these are going to be plants like this. They're co-dominant. The THC is not dominant over the CBD. They're co-dominant. So if they have one of each gene, you get approximately equal production of CBD and THC. Okay? Then we got one more factor you got to understand. See this line is at a slope, okay? This is because CBD isomerizes into THC in the sun. So even though you do all the work to get homozygous CBD industrial hemp varieties, you're always going to have, as long as you don't do something special, that's what you talk about. And there's exceptions to all of this. But you see, this is caused by the sun, and it changes every year. It changes by the harsh conditions of the plant. You stress the plant, it seems to make THC more. So this is variable a little bit, okay? But this is just 22 to 1. It's 25 to 1 that everybody talks about. You know, this is what we're trying to aim for. But using industrial hemp down here to do it is a really long, slow way to go. Where if you cross them and you can produce plants here, and you select the plants out here, and you cross those, this pattern here on the screen is what you get. This is the F2 generation, where you get a quarter of the plants being homozygous for THC, a quarter of the plants being homozygous for CBD, and 2/4 of the plants being heterozygous, a gene from each. You see? So now as we're selecting up here, now all of a sudden you've got a crop that you can breed and breed and breed and do the selections and do it, and create this. Now, years ago, when we did this in the Netherlands, this was really hard work. You had to do a whole grass-somatograph on every plant. These days, there's infrared techniques that are able to scan a plant every 80 seconds. There's other ways of doing this. Swab tests on the plant that are effective at being able to go through a field and decide which category wiped out the quarter or the 1 in 100 plants that we want to try to get these plants here for the CBD production. Okay? Now, we can talk about cross-pollination issues and listening, but anybody who's reading Charlotte's Web and those things, you got to understand that that's just all this is. You know? And it's not rocket science, everybody. It can be really easily done. How much time do we have? Time to wrap it up? Okay, no questions?
Actually, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a Q&A, and we're actually going to see.
Yeah, bring it down, exactly.
Come on up. We're going to do a little Q&A with some people in the audience. Anybody have questions for our people on stage today? Any questions in regards to the teacher?
I guess I was asking him, I think he's runs to HCF. I was asking how to get my vendor's card, because I'm trying to get it at that bird at PTSD.
I am not all staff. Oh,
Your information is good. Very educational. Thank you very much. It's not rocket science if you start with the right people in the beginning, right? The right seed, and then it's not rocket science. Water, take care of it.
Are there any other questions?
Great presentation, thank you very much. You know, on the rap about seeds, it's really hard to get seeds right now to grow industrial hemp. Since you're in the business, any recommendations to the audience?
You mean seeds to plant?
Seeds to plant industrial hemp.
Yeah. If we're not able to import seeds to Oregon to plant, we're not going to have hemp produced in Oregon. And the way we get those seeds to plant, the Oregon Department of Agriculture is applying to the DEA for a permit to import hemp. So that's the first hurdle. It might be a major miracle if the DEA does approve the permit, but if we get through that miracle, then the second miracle is a little bit more complicated. You see, in most other countries, there's this international treaty around plant breeders' rights. It's where if you're a breeder and you've done all this work to breed this wonderful plant that has all of these unique characteristics, then you can register that cultivar, that variety, that strain with the federal government of a friendly country, and that way that protects your intellectual property for that plant. And for Canada and European countries and some other countries around the world whose federal government is right on board with hemp, their federal government allows them to register hemp and now even marijuana cultivars for plant breeders' rights. The U.S., since the U.S. doesn't really recognize industrial hemp or marijuana for that matter, the federal government doesn't register cultivars of cannabis for plant breeders' rights. So a producer of seed who's put all this amazing work into breeding these seeds will only ship to other countries that recognize plant breeder rights. So they're not going to, because if they ship their hard work, their seeds over to the U.S., which doesn't protect plant breeders' rights, then they've kind of lost the rights to their cultivar. And so, hopefully there's going to be some seed producer out there, who's just kind of willing to share their genetics or take the risk that they could lose it. But that's probably a bigger hurdle than the DEA.
Do you have any other questions?
I was just curious, if you had 10 acres to pay, how much product could you make? If you were going to make it into paper, it's like, how much product could you grow as opposed to if you had forestry, for example?
It's about 5 to 10 tons of dry matter per acre. Okay? Not including the seed. We're talking about just the straw from the seed. Per season.
One harvest.
Or 600 to 800 pounds of seed per acre.
Oh, way more than that, too. There's production, especially on irrigated lands, over 2,000 pounds an acre.
Do you have any other questions? So, the question to the audience that you want to ask the person, if you already have seed in the state of Oregon, how would you go about getting it certified or cannabis certified? I love those kind of questions.
Well, that's usually done by the Oregon Department of Agriculture. And I was certified, meaning certified for 99.9% purity without contaminants and without weed seed. First we have to start growing it, then I think they're going to implement the programs later on. But they're not there yet. They're just on licensing right now. So,
in other words, just do it.
We have any other questions? We have time, ladies and gentlemen. We have a few minutes until we're getting ready to. We're going to do some giveaways, but we still have time for our guests if anybody has any other questions. This is a great opportunity to talk about food, definitely hemp food, whether it's the difference between THC and hemp. We've got some great, prolific people up here to communicate with it. So does anybody else have any other questions?
nobody's going to ask about pollen.
I mean, I think we get a call for some tidbits in the ring. Cross-pollination of your outdoor crops. Does anybody have a concern in regards to hemp cross-pollinating your cannabis medicine?
He would personally ask it. Yeah, he would. He didn't want to. He wants to ask something.
Well, I want to say I think this state is doing incredibly well. I think this state has the potential to be the leader in this country. That I am watching everything in Washington turn south and go haywire. And everybody who invested in the industry up there feeling like this has been a huge boondoggle, corrupt botch of an implementation. And really, we all hope Oregon has the experience and the self-interest to do this right here. And so far, pretty much, so good. You know, I think the number of people working on this, the 100 and some bills that were introduced in the legislature. I went to the meeting of the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board on Friday and watched all the machinations there. Everybody's trying really hard to figure out how we're all going to live together here and try to grow hemp and be a leader in industrial hemp and try to grow outdoor, incredibly produced, the best, brand and urban grown pot available. And be known for that, worldwide. We had that opportunity here. I want to be part of it. So if anybody's got a farm, got a place that they're not using, got a, nice idea of where to get started here, come talk to me when I'm done because I want to be here. I want to become a resident.
John for president.
Well, it's true that the future of Oregon is truly green, ladies and gentlemen. And Oregon will truly shine. And I look forward to all of your futures and to watching Oregon grow and become a budding cannabis business. Whether it's in hemp, whether it's in cannabis, or whether it's just in ancillary products, I think you guys will shine with your creativity